Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Everything Cooperative this beautiful Thursday morning, right after Christmas and right before the New Year. And we're going to end out the New Year talking about money and a great use of money. This morning, we have Mr. Gerardo Espinoza on the line. Good morning, Gerardo. Okay, we're having a little technological difficulties. Maybe he'll call back. He's the executive director of LEAF. LEAF is Local Enterprise Assistance Fund. So he has been there for 5 years. And what's so interesting about Gerardo, he got a master's degree in economics from Stanford University, where I got my MBA. And then he got an MBA from Harvard. So, Mr. Gerardo, good morning.
Good morning, Vernon. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for your invitation.
Thank you for joining us this morning right before the end of this year. And I told folks that we were going to talk about money this morning. How did you go to Stanford and Harvard, though? How did that happen? And how much debt did you end up with?
That's why I'm still working now, paying those loans, Vernon. But it was, as you know, we called Stanford the farm, right? It was a very nice period, beautiful environment, and great opportunity to meet people from all over the world, and a similar experience at doing the MBA at Harvard.
Well, at Stanford, I had applied for Stanford, Berkeley, and Harvard, and I decided to go up. I was living in San Diego at the time, so I drove up the coast to Stanford, and when I went across the campus, I said, I'm going to school here. It was just very peaceful, and I saw the church. So I think I had a spiritual awakening on that campus, but I didn't even go up to Berkeley. And I don't remember if Harvard ever responded to my application. I just decided to go there, and I think for me, it was a great experience.
Yes. No, I think the fact that my sense is that Stanford is unique in the sense that, in contrast to other colleges that are right in the middle of the city, is the Stanford presence, right? And as you said, that chapel there, and a campus being kind of, is not that far from San Francisco, but is not in San Francisco either. And I think that gives it experience of its own. Whereas Harvard is like MIT and other colleges, I think they are in the middle of the city. So it's my sense is less of that university space, right? At the farm, I think that's one of the benefits, that it has its own space, its own environment. I'm glad that you went to the program there, such a highly rated program.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I did not know I did know how rated it was. Somebody from D.C. had suggested I apply for Stanford and Harvard, and it took me about 3 or 4 years to get the nerve up to do that. And I'm glad I did. It's been a great, not only the going to school, but also being in touch with the alumni and continually taking classes.
Yes. No, that's one of the positives. And how was your career track after Stanford, Vernon?
All right, we're going to let you do the interview, okay? Okay. I left there and went to Cummins Engine Company in Columbus, Indiana, and I went around the world doing marketing studies. And then I ran a distributorship for Cummins for 5 years in Puerto Rico and learned un poquito español. And then I came to D.C. I had a chance to buy that distributorship, but it didn't work. Had a great deal, but it just did not work. So I came here and I taught 5 years at Howard in a marketing program, and then I started a property management company. So I'm still doing that. And in doing property management, I started managing housing co-ops and fell in love with this model. And it was not taught at Stanford. This model was not taught in any classes I went in. So 4 years ago, I started this radio program with my cousin and friend as a producer, Pat Thornton. She has a radio program on Wednesday, and I came to be on her program on Wednesday. And I was asked, why don't you have your own program? And I said, okay. And so we were going to do it for 1 month, Gerardo. And now it's been a little over 4 years. So it's been great.
My sense is that co-ops, and particularly housing co-ops, deserve that attention, Vernon. One of the activities that we do at least is the financing of affordable housing, particularly housing co-ops, and there are different models there, but one that you are probably familiar with is there is an organization that is called Resident-Owned Communities USA, ROC USA, and what they do is they provide financing, and we work together with them when they call us. What they do is they provide financing, but it's a specific type of financing. It's a niche, I would say, in terms of affordable housing. Is related to what are called now manufactured homes. In the past, they used to be called trailer parks. That name really doesn't apply because in the 70s, those homes are manufactured according to code specifications. So it's better quality, safety, and all the other elements that requires. But what is interesting is that at the moment, there are about 15 million people in the U.S. that live in manufactured homes. And typically the situation on these manufactured homes is that even though the persons or the families own the home, they rent the space where the homes are. Right? So typically these are parks anywhere from 100 homes to 1,000 homes, and the main challenge that the person living in these arrangements have is that even though they own their home, the land is owned by an investor, and they can be displaced at any time. And most of the persons that live in these homes are either low-income or very low-income persons, and that is always like a constant fear for them, the fear of being displaced. And the other problem is that if they want something like an improvement in the community facilities or a playground for the children, all of that is left to the goodwill of the investor. So ROC USA, what they do is they try to organize these owners of the home so that they can jointly form a cooperative, and the cooperative can buy the land, right? So the financing is provided by ROC USA, by LEAF, and other lenders, and so we make it possible for the community to buy the land, but in the form of a cooperative. And this is one specific type of affordable housing, and it's very rewarding to see the effect that this has on those communities. If I may, let me give you a couple of illustrations, because I think always the personal side of things is what makes a difference. I was attending one of these closing ceremonies.
Let me ask you this, though. Before you give me those testimonials, and I really want to hear them, let me find, you mentioned LEAF, but we haven't talked of what is LEAF yet, and how did you get to LEAF, particularly going to Stanford and Harvard? Either you're rich or you ended up with scholarships or you end up with loans. And if you were like me, it was loans. And so you had to pay those back. So you went into the commercial side, and that's one way of making money. But now you are in the nonprofit side, and more often than not, you don't make as much money in the nonprofit side. You might get the rewards you're getting ready to talk about. So what was your career like, and how did you end up for the last 5 years with Leaf as an executive director?
Yeah, as you said, the three options are reach, scholarships, and loans, right?
Right.
So in my case was number 2 and number 3.
Both, like for me too. Okay. Okay.
And my career has always been in finance, and part of the background there has been in banking, and part of it has been in investment management, particularly managing equity portfolios, similar to the portfolios you would see from investment firms like Fidelity and Putnam and so on. What was a constant, in addition to my professional side in finance, what was a constant since pretty much I started my career was desire for what I call, quote unquote, the common good, right?
Okay.
And I tried to express or manifest that desire by serving in a volunteer capacity and in different ways with a number of non-profit organizations. So when I look at my career, it was like a parallel track. On one hand, there was the professional finance activity, and on the other hand, there was this element of the desire to support, help, contribute to the common good. So those were always parallel tracks, and then I had the chance to identify an industry that kind of combined those two, which is this industry that is called the community development financial institutions. So those are industries that I think probably the easiest way to relate them is to the concept of social enterprise, where there is a business, but there is also a social impact, a social role. In the case of the community development financial institutions, most of them are certified by a government entity that is called the Community Development Financial Institution of the U.S. Treasury, under the U.S. Treasury. And the basic requirement there, to put it in simple terms, is yes, you should be a solid financial institution, you should make good loans, and you should have a strong balance sheet, but also the loans and your financial activities should have a social impact, right? So it's kind of a double bottom line concept there. And so that was a great way of merging those two interests, putting the finance skills to combining it with the social good. There, as you point out, there is a trade-off on the financial side of things, but I think in the cycle of life, there are different opportunities to make that trade-off. And I'm not rich, but I think I was comfortable enough to make that trade-off and get a reward of pursuing those two things at the same time. So that's part of what brought me to Leaf, Vernon.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much. What is your background, your family of origin? You got Espinoza. You're Latino?
Yeah, I'm originally from Peru.
Peru.
And when you say college, the schools are expensive. Coming from a developing country, they are particularly expensive, right? So it was basically that combination initially of scholarships that brought me here, and it was I guess as any young person was the desire to explore, to grow, that attracted me to college in the U.S. and then continued my profession. Something that on the personal side probably was an important pivot, Vernon, was that when I finished the MBA program, my home country was in a very difficult situation. We had a group there that was called Shining Path, Sendero Luminoso, and was at that point in time that I decided.
Gerardo, I'm sorry to cut you off. We got to take our first break, and we'll come back with this right after the break.
1450 WOL.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Everything Cooperative is our program. Gerardo Espinoza is on the line with us this morning. He is Executive Director of LEAF, and he is originally from Peru. And Gerardo, you were talking about Rock USA. Paul Bradley from Rock USA, who's their president and founder, has been on this program in the past. And another CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution like LEAF is, Capital Impact, both Terry Simonette, who has retired now, he was there for quite a long time, and now Ellis Carr is the new executive director. He has been on this program also. And for those of you that would like to listen to other programs, our past programs, you can go on to everything.coop, and you can click on radio shows, and you get a list of the radio shows for the last 4 years, and you could just listen to those. And this one that with Gerardo will be on there in a week or two. So, Gerardo, you were talking before I cut you off. I'm so sorry. If you want to start back up.
I was just making reference to the track that brought me to this position with LEAF and being in the U.S., but that part, I think it's covered. When I was talking about these manufactured homes, I wanted to share some of those personal stories that are always impactful. If it's okay, perhaps I can go ahead with that.
Yes, please.
In one of these situations, and I'm very happy that you have had in the program Paul Bradley and Ellis Carr before. I mean, the work they do is wonderful. One of these ceremonies when we were closing one of these transactions, and a lady, again, these are for listeners that may be just joining, these are manufactured homes. The persons own the home, but they don't own the land. Through these loans, establishing a cooperative, they get to own the land, so they know that they will stay there. There was a lady in the 60s or 70s that stood up and said, today I'm very happy because I know that until the day I die, no one will kick me out of my home. Right? It was a simple but very powerful statement, I think, of the impact that this type of work, this type of transactions have. And I'll give you another illustration. There was this aspect of in one community, about 200 of these manufactured homes. Again, at the closing ceremony, the president of the co-op was telling me, I have lived in this community for 15 years, and before we formed a co-op to purchase the land, I only knew 5 families around my home. Now, as a co-op, we have to get together to make decisions for the community, and now everyone knows everyone. Mm-hmm. And now we are a community, right? So I thought, again, that was very interesting because what could be viewed as a financial transaction ended up really creating a community, right? And so this is one of the activities that LEAF does, this aspect of affordable housing, co-op affordable housing. And there is one that, since you mentioned that you are in property management, Vernon, I thought you might find interesting. Another activity that we do in the area of co-op housing is with an entity called NASCO Property.
Are you saying last?
NASCO, NASCO, NASCO Property.
Okay.
And what they do is they buy homes. Most of them are near universities, right? And typically, graduate students live in those homes, but each home is run as a co-op. So the students themselves work on doing some of the aspect of maintenance in terms of keeping the accounting for the house, paying taxes, doing some of the work that is related to maintenance of the house, calling a plumber when that is needed, and so on. But there is an oversight of NASCO properties, and so NASCO properties visit these homes every 3 months or so to make sure that everything is in place. And whenever there is a need for a capital infrastructure work, then NASCO properties get involved. Whenever the work is substantial, they get involved. And the purpose of this is to have homes where the students can experience cooperative living and where they can have rent that is below what the college would charge them. So it makes their studies more affordable by having a lower rent. And they have now about 20 different houses. And they have been around, when I say they, NASCO Properties has been around probably for about 25 years. And it's an interesting model where the property management is shared between the organization, NASCO Properties, and the students that live in the house. And the other interesting characteristic is that the NASCO Properties, they report to a board of directors, and each house nominates a representative to be on that board, right? So NASCO Properties has oversight of the house, and each student representative of the house, by being a member of the board, has an oversight of NASCO Properties. So it's really empowerment there of the community, right, to manage this business.
You just talked about some of the reasons that I've fallen in love with the co-op model. The first one, the lady said that was her house for the rest of her life. And the other gentleman said, I know my neighbors. We are a community. And now in the NASCO example you're using, that the students have a say in what happens in that house. They have a say on the board. And they can keep their rent lower. So they have a say where they have a better quality of life, a better product at a lower price. And that's one of the things that can be gotten a lot in this co-op world. Better quality at a lower price. And if it's a worker cooperative where the employees own it, they can also have a larger payroll, a larger salary or price per month wages. And they can also, like in food co-ops, which we want to talk about after our next break, but in food co-ops, they, more often than not, they have more fringe benefits. More of the employees have fringe benefits, and they have a better package because the employees are the ones that's making the decisions, as you know better than me, perhaps, because you're in this.
Yes. No, and this aspect of affordable housing, co-op affordable housing, is one of our areas of activities. The other area, as you pointed, is this aspect of financing of food cooperatives, and the other area is the financing of employee-owned enterprises or worker cooperatives. Now, if it's a good moment now, perhaps I can switch to the aspect of the work that we do with food cooperatives.
Let's do that after the next break. We have about a minute to go. So quickly, a co-op it depends on who owns and controls the business. If it's owned and controlled by the employees, it's called a worker cooperative. If it's owned and controlled by the consumers that uses the products and services, It's called a consumer cooperative, and you have housing co-ops and credit unions are examples of consumer co-ops. And the other two larger ones is if it's a marketing co-op, it markets the products, or purchasing co-ops that purchase them. So we get a lot of benefits that we just started talking about, and we're going to take our second break, and then we'll be back to talk about the work that LEAF does. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. The program is Everyting Cooperative. Our guest today is Gerardo Espinoza, who's Executive Director of LEAF. LEAF is the Local Enterprise Assistance Fund, whose mission is to promote human and economic development by providing financial and development assistance to cooperatives and social purpose ventures that create and save jobs for low-income people. Gerardo, that's a mouthful and a great, great mission. And when we took the break, you said you're going to come back and tell us what you do. So what do you do to satisfy that huge mission?
Yes. We have touched bases on this aspect of the cooperative affordable housing, and that obviously has to do with this aspect of providing housing services. And typically, it's a group. Whenever we do these transactions, we get demographic information and with social and economic indicators, and the persons that we serve tend to be on the very low income to low income segment of the population. So the housing side, that is one way how we do that. On the aspect of the other two activities that we do, I would link them more to the aspect of job creation. One of the activities is the aspect of the food cooperatives, and the other one are worker-owned enterprises. So let me start with food cooperatives. As you described well before, the food cooperatives are groups of consumers that get together so that they can establish their own grocery store, right? So and I think there are many reasons that are behind this motivation of these consumers. One is that they want to support the local economy by buying from local farmers. Then they want to have a say on the type of products that are sold at the store. And then they also want a store that is a good employer, that is paying wages and benefits that are adequate to their employees or above market if possible, whenever possible. Those are three elements. Typically, a food co-op starts with a group of individuals that are interested in establishing one of these stores in their communities, and they develop a campaign to get like-minded individuals, and once that reaches a membership of 200, 300 individuals that have this interest, there is a whole network of support to help them with the process. One of the key organizations as part of that network is the Food Cooperative Initiative that helps these efforts when they are at the initial phase, when they are starting up, until they open a store. At the moment in the U.S., there are about close to 450 food co-ops that are members of the National Grocery Co-op Grocers Association, and there are a few more food co-ops that are not members of the association. So my sense is the total number of food co-ops would probably be around 600 in the 600 stores in the U.S. And I believe that something that is very important is I consider these stores as pioneers, because now I think it's very common and very, very mainstream to talk about local food, to talk about, to pay attention to how the environment is affected on growing that local food, to pay attention to recycling. Now, these movement or this initiative of food stores has been around for over 40 years, right? And with the same value, the same concept. And in that sense, I view them as pioneers of what we are witnessing now, right? They were, in my mind, they were one of the first waves to introduce all these concepts and all these concerns about the importance of keeping the local small farmers, the importance of avoiding contamination, and the importance of the recycling element. And so, in addition of being the aspect of a grocery store, I think this aspect of the values that they help to create and establish for society is, I view them as a great contribution that they have provided. In that sense, I view them as pioneers. And then I was making reference to the aspect of job creation, Vernon, and in particularly in the case of the food co-ops, the job creation is not only related to the number of jobs they create in the stores for people that work there, but it goes, I think, beyond that, and what I call externalities that are created by these food stores. And let me give you a specific illustration.
Okay.
As part of our financing, we always make site visits. So I was in one of these site visits to food co-op in Minnesota. It's St. Peter's Food Co-op. And I was lucky that the general manager giving me the tour of the food co-op was Margot O'Brien, and she had been, and I think she was the first or the second employee when the co-op was established. So she knew the whole story of the co-op. And as we were walking down the aisles of the co-op, from time to time, she would stop by and pick up a specific product, let's say a cheese. And she said, we were the first buyer of cheese for this company, and now they are a big regional company. And she could keep walking down the aisles and pick up something else and said, we were the first buyer for this company, and now they are a big national company. So what immediately clicked in my mind is that to some extent, by their focus on purchasing locally or buying locally, and they were serving also as a business incubator, as a sort of a business incubator, because any local producer of oil, soap, cheese, bread, and so on, that has a good product, and the co-op agrees that it's a good product and has the type of ingredients they would like to see, they give them a chance. It's a lot easier for one of these grocery stores to give a chance to a local producer than, let's say, a chain of supermarkets where the headquarters could be across the country. And in doing that, they are like multiplier for the local economy. And that is what, when you were making reference to the aspect that they are better employers, that they are better in terms of recycling, in terms of energy use, and so on, all of this is not anecdotal experience. It's the result of a study that is done by the association in terms of comparing the stores of the food co-ops to other type of grocery stores, and those are the indicators that show that they really stand out in a number of measures that are important to the community. And we normally get involved with food co-ops in three types of situations. One is when there is a startup, a brand new initiative. Another one is when they are expanding and they need to do additional construction, or another one is when they are establishing a second or a third store. So those are the periods when they need the financing. something that impresses me about this aspect of the co-ops, Vernon, is the importance they give to their own community, because it is owned by the community. The co-op itself cares about the community. And I'll tell you a good illustration of this is in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is best to have a number of food co-ops, and about 10 or 12 years ago, these co-ops got together to establish a non-profit organization. And the purpose of this non-profit organization was to go to schools to teach children about healthy food and healthy food habits, right? Now, the term of healthy food has become more popular over the past 7 years, when it was, I think, supported by Michelle Obama as part of what was called the Healthy Food Initiative or Healthy Food Program. But 12 years ago, I think few people had heard of the term or the concept of Healthy Food Program. And these food cooperatives were already not only developing the concept, but they were already establishing a non-profit to go to schools to teach children about this. And they each, I think it's an association of 7 food co-ops that support this non-profit, right? And that's one illustration. Mm-hmm. Another illustration is a prominent food co-op in Minneapolis. It's called Seward Co-op. And they established, like 4 or 5 years ago, they established a program of Keep the Change, right? And so instead, the consumer, instead of getting the 30 cents or 45 cents, they could just donate that. But the donation is not to the co-op, it's a donation to a fund that the co-op has, so that fund can make donations to or non-profits in the community. This program has been established now by about 5 or 6 years, and they have, in terms of the amount that they have donated to non-profit, is close to $1 million. Mm. Now, those are the things I believe that happen when you have organizations that are created by the community, and always keep in mind that the ultimate goal is the well-being of the community, right? So all these initiatives, I think, are part of the DNA of a co-op, and these are the benefits that we see. And I could go on with many illustrations because we provide financing to food co-ops all over the country. One of the most interesting ones for me was the financing that we did in Fairbanks in Alaska for a food co-op in Fairbanks. That was the first food co-op in Alaska, in the history of Alaska. Ah. So that was quite an interesting transaction.
Well, you know, being an economist, as you are, in economy class that I took, I did not understand this, how money flows in the community, this multiplier effect, until I started dealing with it in co-ops. That in a co-op, the people in the community own the business, so when they get paid, the money stay in the community and may turn 5, 6, 7 times in the community, where if they go out, then that money maybe only turn 1 time in the community. Hey, we got to take our final break. And when we come back, I'd like for you to talk more about the different kinds of financing and how people can get a hold of you guys if they want to form a co-op. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Program is Everyting Cooperative, which is sponsored by the National Cooperative Bank. NCB's mission is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, especially in low-income communities, by providing innovative financial and related services. And it seems like the mission of LEAF and the mission of NCB are very, very similar. NCB has been sponsoring this program since its inception to get the word out, because just like WOL's motto is information is power, NCB want you to get information about cooperatives so that you can go look for them to buy your products or services, or you can start one. And LEAF is an organization that could potentially help you get started. Mr. Espinoza, there is a group in D.C. headed by a gentleman by the name of Damian Bascom, who's working and starting a food co-op in Ward 8, which is the low-income area of D.C., Ward 7 and 8. And then there are Richard LaRochelle is working on starting one in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And Richard's group is further along than Damien's group and getting that 200 to 300 members so that they can show that they have the community backing behind them. But I'd like to give them information about how to get a hold of you guys. And how can somebody get a hold of you and LEAF if they want to start a food co-op, or if they want to start a housing co-op or a worker-owned cooperative? How can they get a hold of you?
Yes, the easiest way would be to Google our name is Local Enterprise Assistance Fund, but the acronym of that is LEAF, L-E-A-F. So the easiest way would be to Google LEAF and then the word fund, F-U-N-D. If you do that, LEAF Fund, our website will show up, and that's probably the easiest way to find us and to establish a connection.
So I just did that. I had looked at LEAF before, and I got all kinds of definitions of the LEAF, okay? But LEAF Fund takes you right to Local Enterprise Assistance Fund, and their webpage is leaffund.org. If you want to go there, either way, you can get it. You can get right there. And what would they do when they get on your webpage?
They will get a phone number, they will get an email, and I think the easiest thing is to give us a call, to send us an email, and we'll be getting back to them. I think what happens, Vernon, here is that, for instance, the type of project that you are describing is the type of situations that we deal with, the in and out, right? So as soon as we get a call, we can clearly assess where they are, how we can support them, how we can connect them with other entities in what we call the ecosystem. So for us, I think that's the advantage of working with the specialized organizations. Immediately we know what the situation is and how we can help them. More traditional financial institutions may need to start learning about what a food co-op is, right? And it just makes the road more difficult. So that's why entities like LEAF and NCB and other loan funds exist, so that we hopefully can make the process easier and more a better path to follow.
Okay, so I Googled LEAF Fund, L-E-A-F-F-U-N-D, and then I went to the button that says About. And on that About, I hit About Us, and it gives the mission, what to do, how we do it, how LEAF does it. And at the bottom of that page, it's a phone number, a fax, and an email address on About Us. So you can get this information and call them, and then they can support you either by telling you where you can go get technological information, where you can get help in getting it formed, or if you're at a place of getting financing, then they can possibly help you get the financing and tell you how to apply and all of that. Is that it? Is that what you do? Is that what they do?
Yeah, and let me mention, it's a very, very close community. For instance, I made reference before to the Food Co-op Initiative, which is a non-profit organization that helps to start up food co-ops, right? I serve as a member of the board of that organization. So it's a close-knit community. We pretty much know each other. And so we can quickly, the what entities could be of assistance to a specific initiative.
Good news. And likewise, you can Google Food Co-op Initiative, and it goes right to their homepage. Fenton, good information. Thank you. So you've talked about food co-ops, housing co-ops. What about employee or worker-owned co-ops? How do you work with them, or do you have some examples?
Yes, in the case of food co-ops, we're very well known in that specific world of worker co-ops. That's part of what LEAF has been doing for over 30 years. So normally people are referred to us, and we have seen an increased interest and a stronger pipeline for this type of transactions, Vernon. And I think it all makes sense. It makes sense because unfortunately we have all become aware of the growing wealth inequality that has developed in the country over the past 20 years.
And it's going to get worse with this new tax bill. Okay, I just had to put that in there. I just yes, you've hit a button. Okay, keep talking. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And I think as the awareness grows on this inequality and the effects that this has for the well-being of the country, there are many initiatives to try to offset that, right? And to some extent, I think this aspect of worker co-ops, where the workers own a piece of the not only of the equity but also of the decision making of the company, has gained new traction because it is seen as one of the number of initiatives to have an economy that is more fair to all the stakeholders involved. Something that, in the case of Boston, I think was interesting, and I mention it because to some extent this, I think, opened the eyes for a lot of people. Vernon, in Boston, is about 3 or 4 years ago, the Boston Federal Reserve commissioned a study on wealth inequality, and they call it, the title of the study was The Color of Wealth. And here, again, I'll make reference, we're talking about wealth, we're not talking about income. So these figures include wealth that is could be, for instance, part of the home. And so basically the result of the study were that, and this is just for Boston, it's not for Massachusetts, the median wealth of the white population was $255,000. The median wealth of the Hispanic population, I believe, was around 8,000, or 11,000. I'm sorry, and the median wealth of the African American population was 8. The first time I saw that, in my mind, I was thinking, oh, they forgot the.
We only have a minute, so you've got to wrap it up and tell people what all of that means and how co-ops can be the difference in this wealth.
Oh, okay.
Equation.
Only we have 1 minute. Is in this environment of growing wealth inequality, worker co-ops and in general communities owning a greater share of the economic decisions, I think it's particularly important, right? So this is like having the wings of the back for the co-op community.
For me, this is one of the reasons I really like co-ops, love co-ops, is because of that. $255,000 is the asset value, median asset for whites, $11,000 for Hispanics, and $8,000 for blacks. That's the amount of assets. And when we went through this downturn, a lot of blacks lost their home. A lot of Hispanics and blacks lost their homes, and that was their greatest asset that they had. So we took a dive backwards. And co-ops is a way. And co-ops don't go out of business like other businesses, like the capitalistic. In the 07, 08, the co-op homes did not lose a lot of homes. And I assume Rocky USA didn't lose homes because they make real good decisions. I love co-ops. Thank you. Anything else real quickly?
Thank you. thank you, Vernon. Thank you for your initiative of this program, and thank you for the invitation.
And we'll have you back on again. Everybody out there, we'll see you next Thursday. Please live cooperatively.